I love my wife, but I'm really scared that she's doing something behind my back. I can't talk to friends and family because it's too embarrassing and messed up. I think my coworker may have banged my wife, and it's looking like that may be true. I'm a 36-year-old male. I met my wife, let's call her Daniela, who is a 32-year-old female, in a mall in our city back in 2014. I was in the food court in line when I saw her. It's a funny thing, I was actually trying to go to another restaurant, but the line was too long. Getting in line at the restaurant where she was, I saw her standing at the front. When she looked at me, I couldn't believe how gorgeous she was. When she saw me, she laughed and said she wasn't in line for food. Daniela said her cousin worked there, and she was waiting for her to come out. I was happy as hell that she spoke to me because I couldn't figure out what to say to her. Thanks to that, I was able to break the ice by being humorous, and we talked while she waited for her cousin. I could see I was definitely making a good first impression with her. I asked her while she waited for her cousin if she wanted me to buy her some food, and she said she wanted a strawberry lemonade instead. After buying it, we talked some more, and I continued to be flirtatious and funny with her. When her cousin came out, I asked for her number, and she gave it to me before they left. After that, I did everything I could to sweep her off her feet. After going on some dates, events, and me and my friends hanging out with her and her friends, we made it official. We were dating. We eventually got groovy in a restaurant parking and it was awesome. In 2017, me and Daniela had gotten married after having 3 kids. We had our own family after having 2 girls, and our son being the middle child. We grew into being great parents for our kids. It wasn't easy, but we gave up always going out to clubs and concerts, but we still found time here and there to have fun. Our nightlife was definitely cut in half for sure. I was happy to have Daniela as my wife, and I felt very lucky. She had a great character, but she was so gorgeous that my friends even gave me props. Daniela is Cuban and looks like a cross between the girl who played Wonder Woman and Salma Hayek. She is curvaceous, has tattoos on her arms, and always has a ponytail. She had 2 more tattoos where the sun does not shine. You'd know her for sure by her always wearing a type of ponytail, especially in her selfies. Last Wednesday was when my fears about my wife possibly cheating on me started to intensify. One day, as I was leaving my job, I was saying goodbye to a friend at work. He was on the phone at the time, and he also said goodbye to someone on the other end, mentioning my name. I was curious because it seemed like this person on the phone knew me. So, I asked my friend who he was talking to, and he just smiled and said it was an old coworker of ours. He handed me the phone, and I was actually happy to hear from this guy. Talking to my old coworker, let's call him Tyrell, we caught up on life. He explained that he had left our workplace for a new opportunity. His brother worked in a warehouse in Atlanta and had promised him a job down there, and he took him up on the offer. Tyrell didn't hold back when he mentioned that he was now making more money than us, in a playful way. After our conversation, Tyrell mentioned that he needed to talk to me about something important. I agreed, and he asked for my phone number, instructing me to send it to him through a Facebook DM. I did just that, and he called me immediately. I hadn't even made it to my car yet when he called, so I picked up and asked him what was on his mind. He requested that I not drive off just yet because he had something significant to share with me. This conversation with Tyrell was about to take an unexpected turn. Tyrell asked if Daniela still visited me at work and if Juan was still talking to her. This took me by surprise, and I confirmed that she did. Tyrell expressed concerns and then dropped a bombshell. He believed that Juan had been drilling with my wife. According to Tyrell, he had seen them flirting with each other during his time working with us. He mentioned that Juan had openly expressed his desire to drill Daniela. The turning point, he said, was when Daniela started visiting Juan on Saturdays during overtime hours. I never worked overtime. Why would she come when I am not in office? I asked Tyrell was he sure she was there on Saturdays, and he said he was definitely sure. He said he was pretty sure Juan might be banging her when she had visited one Saturday since there's not a lot to do on a Saturday. They had a lot of free time and Juan would have his Beats by Dre music speaker playing even though Daniela was there hanging out. This was normal to Tyrell, but after a while he came back and said he heard loud Spanish music playing looking, and Tyrell said things were getting sexual with Daniela and the guys. He said Juan had Daniela by her neck while she twerked for him. My wife wasn't exactly bootylicious, but she had enough that she could twerk if she wanted. I froze when Tyrell told me this. I asked was he sure, and he said he was absolutely sure and that he's not blind. He said everybody watched as she bounced it for him, and he even lifted her skirt to show her butt and her leggings. Adding insult to injury, he even told me about the tattoos my wife has on her body. I asked him did she try to stop Juan, and he said no. He said all she did was laugh and twerk for him while he had her by her neck. He said she looked like she was trying to win a contest. I couldn't believe what I was hearing from Tyrell. He said that was sorry and I need to keep my wife from him. He said that includes Isabella as well. I said thanks for telling me all this and hung up. Not long after, I felt very humiliated by this. Driving back home, my head was racing like crazy. What was worse, Daniela twerking for Juan had to have been 7 or 8 months ago. Who knows what's been going on ever since then. They probably took it to his place and she did more than twerk there. I had to ask Daniela what was going on and see if she'd be honest with me. After getting home, I noticed my wife was on the phone with her mom, and once that was done, I tried to have a conversation. I asked her if she met with Isabella today, and she said yes. Then, I inquired about whether she saw Juan, and she denied it, saying he doesn't really hang around much, and it's mainly just her and Isabella. It was like a punch to the gut. I knew she was lying. I'd seen how much Juan was around her, and this was starting to look painfully obvious. After our conversation, she just walked away and started texting her friends, leaving me feeling hurt and betrayed. Right now, I'm trapped in a cycle of depression, anger, and sadness. My mind is racing, and I can't help but tear up as I think about what might be happening. I know I need concrete proof, but the situation is extremely delicate. It involves people I work with, and I can't afford to lose my job. What Tyrell told me about Juan and my wife just twerking may not be enough for a divorce, especially since they could easily deny it. My wife could claim she was just bringing him lunch, and the security guard at my workplace might vouch for her. I'm forced to assume that my wife cheated on me, or at least, things went further than just twerking. 8 months have passed since that incident, and who knows what has transpired since then. I need to find a way to gather concrete evidence if everything is true. However, I have to tread carefully because I don't want to jeopardize my job, and I'm well aware that her family might come after me if I don't have solid proof. My wife, Daniela, has been using her friendship with Isabella as a cover to meet with Juan. After Tyrell's call and Daniela's blatant lies, I started to pay closer attention to her actions around the house. I couldn't access her iPhone due to her hard passcode, but I began eavesdropping on her conversations. I noticed she had late-night conversations on the back porch that bothered me. I would go to the side door to listen in on her side of the conversation, and it was clear that she was likely talking to Juan. The phrases I overheard, like "stop, you're crazy," in discussions about places they'd been, painted a troubling picture. I even heard her mention not going to a certain location and suspected she might be going over to his house. My wife's behavior was becoming more concerning by the day. She spent most of her time on her phone, gossiping with her mom and her sister, and she had become distant with me. She dismissed my advances, claiming she didn't want to be intimate with our kids in the house, which felt like an excuse. I couldn't help but think about all the red flags I had missed before Tyrell's call. After that call, our relationship took a noticeable turn for the worse. She didn't want to engage with me, claimed to be too busy, and our intimate life suffered. Last Saturday, I think I might have disrupted her plans to meet with Juan, and she was furious. She called me while I was driving home from work, saying she planned to go out and expected me to cook for the kids. I immediately suspected she was trying to meet with Juan and lied, saying I had errands to run before coming home. She was already getting ready to leave, and when I tried to make her reconsider, she became insistent and hung up on me. That night, she had a terrible attitude when I got home. She claimed I ruined her night, and when I tried to reason with her, she lashed out, saying she didn't care. A couple of days ago, things took a turn for the worst. After I got home from work, Daniela cooked dinner and then came into the bedroom where I was browsing some new Jordans. She was dressed up, clearly getting ready to go out. When I asked where she was going, she said she was going out with some friends and that I had to watch the kids. I pressed her about who she was going out with, but she only gave vague answers. I told her she couldn't just leave like this, but she accused me of trying to control her and walked out the door with an attitude. I was beyond furious because I could see right through what was happening. My wife was still upset about that Saturday when she couldn't meet with Juan, and it was clear that she was really down about it. She didn't return home until around 2:30 in the morning. Throughout that night, I had been texting her, but her responses were dismissive, and all I got was, "Please stop texting me." I was seething with anger. When she finally walked in, I was in our son's room, playing on his PlayStation. As soon as I saw her, we immediately started arguing. I demanded to know why she had come home so late, and her excuse was that she was just hanging out with her friends. I wasn't buying it and told her that I was supposed to be in bed, but instead, I had been waiting up for her to return home. She pointed out that I had never complained about her coming in late before and accused me of always being with her. It was a ridiculous argument, and I couldn't let her gaslight me into believing I was some sort of controlling husband. After some back and forth, our son came out to see what all the yelling was about, and he asked what was wrong. At that point, Daniela said she wouldn't argue with me anymore and stormed into the bedroom. Our son saw the video game and asked if he could play. I agreed, but I told him it would only be for a little while, and then he had to go back to sleep. He started playing the game, and I wanted to continue the argument with Daniela. I wasn't going to let her gaslight me about being controlling when she was the one coming home late. I walked into the bedroom with the intention of continuing the argument. However, as soon as I entered the room and saw what was before me, I stopped mid-sentence. Something had caught my eye, and it was about to change everything. I walked in the room. My wife was getting undressed and it looked like she was wearing a black string as underwear. I guess my wife thought I would still be with our son because she looked surprised when I walked in. My wife just stood there as she was wearing a piece of string, and I saw her for the thought she now was. After looking at me for a brief second, she shot me a look that said, "If you ask me, we're just going to argue." After she grabbed her pajamas off the bed, she decided to go in the bathroom to change. I couldn't believe what I just saw, and I can't lie, it stopped me dead in my tracks. I was utterly crushed. I made the decision to sleep on the couch that night because I knew things would be incredibly awkward after what I had witnessed. My brain was in a whirlwind, and I couldn't think straight after seeing that. I'd never seen my wife wearing such a piece of lingerie or thong before. It was almost like she was wearing nothing at all, just a thin black string. To be fair, Daniela has had sexy underwear in the past, but it's been ages since she wore anything like that. The only only time I've seen her in anything remotely close was when we were on vacation, and she'd wear sexy bikinis, but it was primarily for her Instagram photos. Even then, what she was wearing that night seemed more like something you'd see on a risque video or a tabloid. At this point, my wife's behavior is unquestionably suspicious and secretive. After reading advice from others, I decided to take action. I ordered a voice-activated recorder device and arranged for it to be delivered to a friend's address. Thankfully, my friend didn't ask any questions and agreed to let me pick it up when it arrives. I don't want my wife to see the package and start asking questions. I'm determined to get to the bottom of this and find out the truth. Thanks to Tyrell's call, my suspicions seem to be aligning with reality. I'll try to provide updates, but I need to be as discreet as possible and refrain from being confrontational to gather the evidence I need. It's a tough situation, but I'm ready to uncover the truth, regardless of the cost. I've always tried not to be the jealous type, but it's hard when my wife, Daniela, is constantly receiving compliments and attention on her Instagram posts. Inappropriate comments and likes from thousands of guys can take a toll on anyone's confidence. The recent events have pushed me to a point where I felt the need to gather evidence to make sense of what's happening. I bought a voice-activated recording device with the intention of getting proof and, if necessary, considering a divorce. To address the situation and see if we could work things out, I decided to ride with Daniela to the supermarket. I expressed my concerns about her behavior and tried to communicate with her about the need to balance her social life with her responsibilities to the family. I mentioned how her going out with friends was fine, but her spontaneous actions and not keeping me informed were causing problems. Daniela initially seemed receptive and agreed to be more mindful of our family. However, things took a turn when she received a phone call from one a couple of days ago. It seemed to reignite my suspicions and concerns. And just today, Daniela told me that our kids wanted to watch a Pixar movie with their cousins and that she was taking them. I thought it was a great way for her to spend more time with the kids. However, after they left, my nephew called to inquire about a video game, which led to a confusing conversation where he indicated that Daniela had said she was only going to drop the kids off. This inconsistency in her story triggered my suspicions even further, especially considering Tyrell's claim about her spending Saturdays with Juan during overtime. When I called her today, she didn't pick up the phone, which infuriated me. I called my workplace's security to inquire if they were still working, as I wanted to confirm if Daniela was indeed with Juan. They confirmed that they were still at work. This might be the best opportunity to expose my cheating wife. I searched for my wife's car in the parking lot. The anger was already simmering inside me, and I was on the edge as I walked into the building. I could feel the eyes of Juan's crew on me, and they seemed as surprised as I was angry. I knew in my gut that they had to be in the trucker's lounge, and I wasn't about to let anyone stop me. One of the crew members tried to stand in my way, but I wasn't having it. I let him know in no uncertain terms that I wasn't there to mess around. He backed off, and I made my way to that small, dingy room. It was a strange place, with outdated vending machines and an air of neglect. I stayed close to the wall and looked inside, and what I saw was beyond belief. Juan was there with my wife, sitting on a couch with his shirt open and his pants and underwear down, but he held my wife's face in his crotch. "You look like some dark lord in the mountains." After he grabbed a village one and made her slowly work him, he looked down at my wife while she was on her knees sucking obediently. Reaching into my pocket, I pulled out my phone. I had a feeling I was going to need it. So, I pulled it out and started recording. Daniela was clearly too busy to notice, and Juan was just watching her and got at least 15 good seconds of them doing this after getting some proof. I jumped out of them screaming "F you," which Juan looked surprised to see me, and Daniela gave me a super annoyed look on her face. Looking up at me, she asked what I was doing there. Very agitated, I just screamed at her, "F you, which this is how you treat me." She said, "Can you please just go away?" Mind you, she's still holding him in her hand. She all of a sudden left him and covered her face with her hands. I kept hurling insults and questions, but my wife's reaction shocked me even more. She didn't appear embarrassed or remorseful about getting caught. Instead, she seemed more concerned about how I was acting in front of Juan. She rolled her eyes at my outburst and begged me to leave them alone, as if our shattered marriage meant nothing to her. Her indifference fueled my anger, and I continued to hurl accusations and insults. That's when she told me, "I don't love you." Those words struck me. I shot back at her that I wanted a divorce. Her response was a frustrated "okay," and she seemed more annoyed by my presence than the collapse of our relationship. I left the warehouse, got into my car, and drove away. After I got back home, my anger and frustration boiled over. I punched the walls, cursed at the top of my lungs, and let my emotions run wild. It was incomprehensible to me how she could betray our marriage like this. The person I thought I knew was now a stranger, and I was determined to put an end to the torment she had put me through. She still hadn't returned home, and I had no idea of her whereabouts. I suspected she might be with her sister, confiding in her about the situation. But whatever was to come next, I knew I had the evidence to back up my claims. The proof of her infidelity was like a shield, and I was prepared to use it in various ways, especially in the impending divorce proceedings. It showcased her irresponsibility and her disregard for our marriage. In hindsight, I realized that I probably should have seen the signs earlier. She seemed to be more interested in what I could do for her rather than our love. Daniela didn't seek love, she craved desire and attention. Juan's attraction and pursuit had drawn her in, and that's why she had strayed. A relationship built on such a foundation was destined to fail because people like her always revert to their true selves. I had recently purchased a voice-activated recorder, though I'd used it only once. It was ironic that all I needed was a call from a guy who no longer worked with us to uncover the truth. Daniela had always been the kind of person who expected to be treated as if she were entitled. I did whatever it took to keep her happy, and she made me believe that this was what a good husband should do. She acted like I was fortunate to have her because she saw herself as a trophy, especially considering the attention she received. In the beginning, she was a good mom and seemed like a good wife, but I now understood that her love was more for the attention and affection I worked hard to provide her. One of the major issues was Daniela's insatiable need for attention. This was evident in her constant use of Snapchat and Instagram, where she had a large following, with about 80% of her followers being men. The comments she received on her posts were often inappropriate, and it required me to have thick skin to cope with it. Being in a relationship with her, especially when she posted pictures in revealing bikinis from our trips to places like Vegas and Jamaica, was a challenge. It was now clear that she wouldn't change, even when she had someone like me who was willing to take care of her. The allure of someone who found her attractive and treated her the way she wanted proved too strong. With everything now over, I had to face the reality and decided to call my siblings to share the news. The first person I called was my big brother, whom I'll call Ricky. I ranted about the situation, expressing my frustration with as many expletives as I could. Ricky asked if I was at home and said he needed to make a quick stop but would come by afterward. I also called my younger sister to break the news to her. She gave me a lecture but mentioned that Ricky was calling her and would likely be discussing the situation. She said she'd check up on me later, then hung up. She called back shortly and said Ricky was on his way to pick me up. She asked about the kids, and I explained they were at the movies, with Daniela scheduled to pick them up later. She wasn't thrilled about the kids being with her, but given my state of mind, there wasn't much we could do. As I hung up the phone, I started to drift off to sleep until I heard Ricky's car pull up. Opening the door, I saw my brother approaching with a bag and his toolbox in his hands. Ricky was an intimidating-looking guy, bald with a beard, and he had the aura of someone who could have been in the military. He walked up to me and gave me a big, heartfelt hug. While both of us often played the tough guy when it came to our feelings, it was clear that we both understood how much I needed support. After the hug, he told me he had stopped at the store and bought new locks for the house, emphasizing that the last thing I needed was for Daniela to return later and take everything. After an hour of talking and changing the locks at my brother Ricky's house, he and his girlfriend did their best to cheer me up over the weekend. My sister, Gina, also came over to talk to me. I had contacted everyone in my family, and while it was comforting to have their support, I couldn't help but relive the disturbing image of what I had seen. I had hoped to catch my wife confessing to her infidelity or something similar, but an opportunity for confrontation came sooner than expected. On that Sunday, Daniela's sister, whom I'll call Christina, called me. At first, Ricky didn't want me to answer, but I reminded him that my kids were with her, so I picked up the call. After picking up, Christina asked what was going on, explaining that her sister wouldn't return to the house but wouldn't reveal why. I decided to tell her the truth about what I had discovered, catching Daniela cheating on me at my workplace. After hearing my revelation, there were a few seconds of silence before she began to deny it, accusing me of lying about her sister. Allowing her to rant, I eventually told her to hang up and promised that I would show her the proof. She began to say something else, but my anger got the better of me, and I hung up on her. After that, I sent her the video evidence and didn't hear from her for the rest of the day. I spent the remainder of the day attempting to relax. When Monday arrived, I went to work and sought out my supervisor to discuss the situation involving Juan and Daniela. Surprisingly, he gave me a testimony sheet to document my complaint. While I was in the process of filling out the paperwork, he expressed his condolences and inquired if I had evidence of what I was reporting. Frustrated, I affirmed that I did and even offered to show him the video I had taken. His response caught me off guard. He asked if I truly had concrete evidence. Reaching out, he retrieved the form I was filling out, saying it would no longer be necessary. He proceeded to make a phone call and spoke to someone regarding the situation. After hanging up, he informed me that he had contacted the manager, who requested that I send the video to his email. The manager would address the matter during his upcoming visit to the facility in a few days. I reluctantly agreed to do so but made it clear that I wouldn't be coming to work for the next couple of days. A few days later, Daniela's sister, Christina, finally called me back, which was a surprise. She explained that she had talked to Daniela and said the kids wanted to come home. She wanted me to speak to Daniela that night. I agreed to take my kids but stated that I had no interest in talking to Daniela because, in my opinion, there was nothing left to discuss. Christina mentioned that she thought I would be the more reasonable one in this situation and asked me to think about the family. Strangely, I felt like I was the unreasonable one. I reiterated that I had no intention of speaking to Daniela because she had cheated with my coworker, causing embarrassment at my workplace. Christina then insisted that it wasn't like I thought, telling me that Daniela had only been involved with him at the job or at his place. I scoffed at her response, saying, "Yeah, and how do I know that? For all I know, she banged Juan's whole crew while she was at it." Christina got upset, defending her sister and saying that wasn't what happened. I responded, "Then what the hell did happen?" That's when Christina began to reveal everything that Daniela had told her. I wished I had never brought this up, especially because I knew that Daniela wouldn't lie to her sister, making the situation even more painful. As Christina continued to share Daniela's side of the story, she explained that when Daniela first met Isabella, Juan was talking to Isabella. Daniela mentioned that she was there to pick me up. While waiting for me, Juan and Daniela started talking and would hang out when she arrived, waiting for me to come out. Over time, Daniela and Isabella became friends, and she enjoyed spending time with them during lunch breaks. According to Christina, Daniela revealed that Juan began complimenting her, especially about her butt, which surprised her but also made her feel good about the attention. Christina mentioned that Daniela made a mistake one day by telling Isabella that she found Juan attractive. Isabella relayed this information to Juan, and from that point on, he began getting too close to Daniela and making inappropriate comments. When I asked Daniela why she didn't just tell me, Christina explained that Daniela didn't want to because she genuinely liked Juan and the attention he was giving her. Christina recounted that she was asked when everything started, and Daniela hesitated to share the details. However, after I insisted, Christina revealed that Daniela didn't know when it exactly began but mentioned a birthday party for Isabella's sister. According to Christina, Isabella invited Daniela to the party, where Juan was also present. Daniela was surprised to see him there, and they hung out and had fun. Christina inquired whether Juan was trying to get close to her, and Daniela confirmed that he was. They started dancing and eventually became more intimate. Christina described a scenario in which Juan asked Daniela to twerk for him, and she did, leading to more physical contact, including making out. Christina explained that their relationship escalated from there. Daniela would hang out at Juan's apartment with Isabella, and Juan started getting increasingly physical with her. This included sexual activities, where he would go down on her, and she reciprocated. I expressed my disbelief at what I was hearing, and Christina sympathized with my feelings, saying she couldn't believe it either. She mentioned that Daniela felt Juan was skilled and enjoyed his wild nature. Daniela initially thought that going down on her was the extent of their involvement, but Juan wanted more. One day, he turned her around, pinned her against the couch, and things progressed further. Christina acknowledged that Daniela should have stopped things and left, but she felt unable to resist the situation as it unfolded. I was stunned and disappointed, repeatedly questioning how Daniela could do this to me. Christina continued to recount the details of Daniela's involvement with Juan, explaining that Daniela found their secret encounters exciting. The fact that it was wrong added to the excitement, and Daniela liked how rebellious Juan was. Christina said that he was so eager that she thought the neighbors might hear them during their intimate moments. She compared it to their thin-walled apartment, where any loud moans could be easily heard. Juan and Daniela continued their secret encounters until Tyrell discovered their involvement. Christina acknowledged that Tyrell's intervention seemed to put an end to their relationship. But I was not interested in hearing further details and asked her to stop. She wondered if I would consider being the level-headed one in this situation and talk to Daniela, but I was adamant that I had nothing to say to her. I informed Christina that I would come to pick up the kids the next day. Feeling low after this conversation, I attempted to regain my composure. A coworker called me, and I discovered that Juan had been fired. It was surprising news, as he told me that 2 men and a woman in suits had arrived at the workplace with the supervisor. They checked the trucker's lounge, presumably to verify the room from the video. Juan was subsequently called to the office and asked to gather his belongings. After hearing this, I admitted to my coworker that I was responsible for Juan's firing. He understood my actions and mentioned that he would have done the same in my shoes. We discussed my return to work, planning to come back on Friday for half a day. The following day, I picked up my kids. They were excited to see me and mentioned that their mother had been ignoring them and acting mean. I saw Daniela in the kitchen, engrossed in her phone conversation with her sister, paying no attention to my arrival. The kids asked if they could bring their iPads with them, but Daniela refused, insisting that she had bought them and would keep them. This led to a heated argument, and I didn't hold back in. I called her an open highway and cheap trucker's hoe. She accused me of being a snitch for getting one fired. She hurled insults at me, calling me names and insisting that I was lucky she even looked my way. She claimed that Juan and I could have settled our issues with a physical fight, but instead, I chose to have him fired. I responded by saying that men fight only for real women, not for cheap piece of used meat. I added further, I like my women like I like my coffee, without a trucker's sausage in it. This led to further insults from her, including calling me dusty and lame. In the midst of our confrontation, I threw a glass of orange juice at Daniela, narrowly missing her as she dodged it. In retaliation, she threw a fork at my head, which also missed its mark. Our altercation was eventually broken up by my brother, Christina, and Christina's friend. Daniela continued to yell and express her disinterest in me while I was escorted outside by my brother. Once I had calmed down, I left the scene, exhausted from the confrontation. I informed my daughter that her mother had taken her iPad. She seemed unfazed, expressing her desire to leave the situation. Despite my outburst, I felt a sense of satisfaction from confronting Daniela. Now, my priority was to move forward with the divorce process. The lawyers I consulted with mentioned that the video could be valuable evidence for various aspects of the divorce proceedings. I believed that Daniela's self-centered actions and her delusion of having a meaningful relationship with Juan would eventually lead to disappointment. I was determined to move forward and find peace of mind for myself and my children. My real family, my kids, and even Christina, if she ever realized Daniela's behavior, were now the most important aspects of my life.
Dear listener, if you have reached this far, please click on the subscribe button. It will be a great help.